Welcome back, regular viewers of this program. We've been a strident supporter of innovation and our campaign to keep Australia clever. As such, I recently instituted Tech Tuesdays to try and keep up the conversation. Tonight, the Labor MP who is responsible for that inquiry into excessive software prices. Whatever happened to that? We'll find out, and a few other things too. Joining me now, the Labor Federal MP, Husic. Welcome back to the show.
I'm pretty stoked to be here for Tech Tuesday.
Tech Tuesday. I think it's the inaugural. I've been always doing it, but I've called it that. I put those so that I remember who I'm interviewing on which nights. I used to have Women's Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
So I had a female.
So they're all themed.
Media Monday.
Nice. Tech Tuesday, that's it.
I was going to start with your inquiry, but, you know, that's a free kick, so I'm going to go the hard one. The NBN report today...
I'm always happy to talk NBA.
The NBN report today by Bill Scales, very respected businessman, calls it chaotic. Basically, you wasted billions of money. It was done on the back of an envelope. It's one of the most damning reports I've ever seen into a government program of this size. You were a big supporter of the NBN. Do you feel chastened at all? Is there anything you want to apologise to the taxpayer about?
Is there... I just want to get a handle on what the coalition is going to settle for. You know, when they were in opposition, they said that it was going too slow, that this project wasn't working, it was going too slow. Now they've commissioned a report that said it went too fast. So what's it going to be? Bottom line is people know that on the league ladder, on the international league ladder, where we are in terms of broadband penetration and the way in which we're taking advantage of what flows from that, we are way down. We need to do much better. The coalition's plan, they're going to do it, they reckon they're going to do it sooner. So they're criticising us for going too fast. They're going to say they're doing it sooner. But the outcome of all that investment will be we'll have slower speeds and less people connected to fibre.
That's a very good politician's answer, but the question was not about the coalition. It was about Bill Scales' announcement today. As I said, it's a very damning report. Did you take any responsibility? No one's saying the idea wasn't great, but if you can't implement it efficiently, isn't that an embarrassment? Well,
the coalition has spent bulk of their time since they've come into office commissioning reports. They've rolled out more reports to consultants than they have fibre.
Well, it sounds like you should have commissioned a report.
And we did. We commissioned McKinsey.
Then how did you waste billions of dollars and have such a chaotic event?
You know, they're obviously going to work their hardest to rewrite history. The bottom line is they know this is a tough project. They rolled out a few one-liners before the election. They've rolled out less fibre. And what they've done is they've failed on two counts, the things that they said they'd do. They said by 30 June that they'd hit over 460,000 connections, and they've hit about 390,000, so 70,000 short of their own target. And they've walked away from their own target of 25 megabits per second download that they'd reach by 2016, that Australian homes would get that. So they should just focus on, instead of reports, they should focus on getting the job done.
Just before we move on to some of the positive, I have one more question on that. Shouldn't governments, aren't there lessons to be learned? Won't any government just say, look, maybe we didn't get that right? Because what worries me on this is, I'm not saying the NBN wasn't a good idea. I was a supporter. I thought the mining tax was a good idea. But the trouble with your previous government was the good ideas were implemented so haphazardly, so badly, that they're now gone for all time. You ruin it.
I don't accept that it was done haphazardly. We had a series of fairly independent reports about how to scale up this project. If you look at fibre rollouts anywhere they've occurred on the planet, they take a while to get started, and when they do...
I don't think anybody's wasted this much money, has it?
Well, you know, you say it's waste. I don't agree with that whatsoever. I mean, the fact of the matter is there are a number of parts of Australia now that are connected up with fibre, and that in other parts of the world where they're doing it, for example, I visited Kansas earlier in the year and saw what Google's doing there. They're saying that it has a massive economic benefit for regional areas. You know, it's now up to the coalition. You know, stop complaining, start constructing, get the thing done.
I agree with you, actually. I mean, I was putting on my other hat, but I do think we need it. You know, you have to do it, and I do wish somebody would just say, yes, you know, we could have done it better and we don't want to ruin it. But anyway, that's a lot to ask. Let's go to the positive things then. It's the first anniversary, I gather, of the report. Now, your report, you pushed very heavily for this, the fact that Australian customers are being gouged by international software companies and we're paying more. You had that Senate inquiry, you pushed for it. It came out with a report, it's a year ago. Where are we at?
And it's sat on the shelves and the government hasn't done anything on it. What they have done, though, is instead of sticking up for consumers, they've gone and stuck up for the content producers. I understand too, the content producers have legitimate concerns about piracy, but, you know, the fact of the matter is, as much as we're high on the international comparisons about piracy relative to other countries were also high based on the report on prices, 50% on occasion higher than what the rest of the world pays.
Let's just
and
look
so
on
some people take the, as Communications Alliance said, the less noble route of trying to obtain their software in ways and their products in ways that they probably shouldn't. But we've got to deal with both things at once, pricing and piracy.
See, that's the point you're saying. We're hearing a lot about piracy at the moment, but you're saying one is leading to the other. If we weren't paying such high prices, you'd probably have less piracy.
Well, I think what's come out is that when the market forms a response in a way to dissuade people from taking up pirated methods of obtaining their digital products, you see a difference. I mean, when Apple pioneered this. When they changed the pricing on music and they actually went to the 99-cent singles, you saw a correlating response in terms of piracy. And that's been shown in a range of different areas. And really, I think the government is going about this all wrong. They are not being fair. They've done nothing on pricing. They've done nothing on dealing with access, and they've just gone the piracy route, and I think that this is going to lead to problems for them.
Now, just on the pricing, it was a previous government's report, so I can understand that, and it took a while to get up, even with your own government, and unfortunately, if you hadn't lost the election, you wouldn't be saying this, so you did lose. Well, it's up to them, but what...
I hasten to add that it wasn't a government report, it was a parliamentary one, and it did attract bipartisan support, and all the people on that committee said that this was a legitimate issue that needed to be tackled, and what it also came up with is the linkages between obviously piracy, pricing, access, but also multinational profit shifting too. So there's a whole lot of stuff.
We'll get to that in a minute. But if it was bipartisan, and you obviously had coalition members on it, is there any push? And you're always very good about bipartisanship. Any push by the coalition members there, or anybody else, to get this moving, or have they gone off on that other tangent you're talking?
Oh, I would certainly welcome their support. I haven't seen evidence of them doing it, but that I don't want to malign them. I don't want to.
But there's no push that you can see across the aisles.
But the thing that I think has been good about this report is that it has led to a number of public policy areas, or touched on a number of public policy areas, like I said, about profit shifting and the way we've got to change our taxation regimes, to piracy, linking all these in together.
Well,
they need to be tackled.
One of the first things I remember of this inquiry, it was one of the first to out the arrogance of these multinational, global, supposedly do no harm companies, Google, Apple, all of them. Now, of course, they've been demonised because we found out that just gouging the customers was only the tip of the iceberg. They're actually ripping off shareholders, really, legally, totally legally, through the tax transfer, the problem of transfer pricing. Now, the government is talking on this, so you have to give them, in fairness, they are trying to do something on that, aren't they?
They are talking that up now after walking away in my EFO from $700 million in measures that could have started working on this. And certainly I think, it should be welcomed. It's on the G20, it has to go there. I mean, initially David Cameron, for example, last year was saying it should go into the G8, but a lot of other countries are saying, no, this is a bigger issue that's affecting revenues when, revenue is harder for governments to lock down. So it is good that they're doing it. But again, they're dragging the chain. They have to be pressured into doing these things. And the transfer pricing issue is a serious one where, if you look in some cases, they don't manufacture here, they don't do R&D here, and they're setting prices between subsidiaries, and I'm sure they have an eye to the implications in terms of their tax bill, and we're losing out. And I don't think it's fair that other companies do the right thing and these companies can use a global taxation regime to minimise what they're exposed to.
A bit like offshore mining companies that don't pay tax here. But if you'd got a mining tax up that worked, we wouldn't. Anyway, let's go down the other way. Let's go to the piracy. I was going to talk to you on this, but again, another free kick today because we've got a dispute between Malcolm Turnbull and George Brandis in all the papers. Malcolm Turnbull indicated last week that ISP would not have to pay for piracy. George Brandis today said they will. Now, where does your party stand on this? Where do you stand on this issue? And can you explain it in sort of simple terms, what this dispute within the coalition is over?
There are two things that are being proposed. One is about piracy and tackling and basically making changes effectively to a High Court decision via law that occurred in 2012 on how our ISPs are responsible. And there's also this push for mandatory data retention from a national security perspective, but would force a lot of companies, particularly in the telco space, to upgrade their infrastructure to store that much data, and it's been suggested that they'll have to pass that cost on to consumers anywhere between $5 to $10 a month per consumer, and it's been dubbed the internet tax by the industry. So they're making all these changes. I mean, Malcolm Turnbull can say that he's concerned about this, that he's concerned about the impact on consumers, that they're not doing enough about pricing, but when he's had an opportunity to deal with, for example, responding to the parliamentary inquiry that's looked at IT pricing, he's done nothing on it. So he can't try to get kudos from the industry by saying the right things, but not actually... So
if you don't agree with Malcolm, does that mean you agree with George Brandis?
No, not at all. I think, look, George Brandis has got a case of the reverse Midas. Everything he's touched has turned to dust. You can see it on 18C. You can see it in terms of what's happened with mandatory data retention. You'll see it happen in terms of way he's dealt with the Middle East, and now he's proposing changes to copyright. I mean, everything that he has touched has turned to dust, and we'll have to wait and see.
Hold on, they're in dispute, and you don't agree with either of them. So where do you stand?
No, I didn't say. I said my criticism with Malcolm is that he hasn't moved on the issue of pricing, and that if you're going to deal with piracy, you have to deal with these two issues simultaneously. Now, Malcolm needs to make a push on this, and he hasn't so far. And if we leave it in George Brandis's hands, all you'll have is one side of the debate dealt with, and it'll be a recipe for ruin.
Just finally, because it is the big story of the day, the data retention, you've brought up the good point. Everybody's looking at the issue of privacy. You've brought up the issue of cost. Where do you stand on this, and who will pay for this?
The proposals on mandatory data retention were put forward. They were being considered by us when we were in government. We weren't convinced that this was necessarily the way to go. We certainly want to make sure that in terms of national security that our intelligence agencies are equipped to deal with things.
So you're for or against it?
But no, well, we said that the model as it was proposed then we weren't happy with. We don't have much detail out of this new government about what they're proposing to do, but what it does seem to be, judging on the reactions of the major telcos, is it's a recipe for more red tape and cost, and there hasn't been a really cogent case put forward as to why they would need to go ahead with this.
Right, so it sounds like you want more information, because it's not good.
We need to see the detail.
It is a worldwide move to do it, and it is a security issue.
Well, and there's also been, if you look in the US, there's been big pushback, and even the IT sector early this year forcing the president to water down the way they deal with data retention in the States. And I was there when that actually occurred. It's a big issue.
It is a big issue. I must say, though, I'm more worried about my security personally being blown up than data retention, but we'll have that argument another time. Thank you very much. Always a delight to talk to you.
Good to be here on Tech Tuesday.
Ed Husic, Federal Labor MP. That's all for tonight. I'll be back again to do it all again tomorrow night. Same bat time, same bat channel, same bat host, different guest though.